Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending upon where you have joined from. And welcome to another webinar from Data Platform Geeks. Today's our topic is on ADF Mapping Data Flow, and our speaker is Sudhir Rawat, who is a senior software engineer from Microsoft and is a very close friend of Data Platform Geeks. My name is Satya Ramesh, and I will be the host for you for next 1 hour. And Aarti Nambiar is helping me with moderation. Before we move into the webinar, a quick introduction. We work for e-dominant systems, under which we have a couple of brands. SQLMaestros, under which we do a lot of advanced trainings on SQL Server, Microsoft Data Platform, and artificial intelligence related technologies called masterclasses. And we also have a couple of self-paced learning solutions called learning kits and hands-on labs. We are coming up with a video courses on SQL Server performance tuning and SQL querying and programming. I'll talk about all these things a little later. And we also have a famous health check service for SQL Server. Peopleware India, which is our corporate training unit, and we also have a ERP product called Expand SM ERP. Today's our concentration is on Data Platform Geeks and SQL Server Geeks, which are community initiatives by Amit Bansal, which were founded in 2010, under which we do a lot of free in-person events, webinars, etc. And once in a year, we do this summit called Data Platform Summit. Here is the picture of recently concluded Data Platform Summit, wherein more than 1,000 plus people from 300 different companies traveled down from 16 different countries to attend this conference for 3 days. And there are more than 100 plus sessions delivered by 50 plus speakers who again travel down from 20 different countries. So if you're working with data, artificial intelligence, and analytics related technologies, so this summit is a must attend for you. And very shortly, we are going to announce DPS 2020 dates as well. And here is a picture of Data Platform Geeks team and e-dominant teams on stage of Data Platform Summit 2019. Here is the DPG core team: Amit Bansal, founder and president; Manohar Punna, who is a vice president, and you can see all other regional mentors across various cities in India and abroad. A quick thank you note for all e-dominant teams who is helping us to execute all these events in a smoother manner. And special thanks to Microsoft for all Microsoft support for our community efforts. And you're already a member of Data Platform Geeks. Remain as a member. You'll get access to free videos, labs, magazines, and other host of learning resources as well. And make sure dataplatformgeeks.com domain is whitelisted, and add events at dataplatformgeeks.com to your address book, so you won't miss out on any of our upcoming emails on free events. And if you have joined today's webinar using direct joining link, please become a member so that you'll get a slide deck, etc. of today's webinar that we are going to upload in Data Platform Geeks shortly. So beyond this webinar, if you have any questions, you can join our Facebook, LinkedIn, and Telegram groups, and you can ask your questions there. Of course, you can ask questions during the webinar as well. You can use Q&A panel to ask your questions. All the questions will be answered at the end of the session. If you have still questions after the session, then you can use these social channels to ask your questions. And all the webinars are recorded, and we will upload the webinars under youtube.com/SQL Server Geeks YouTube channel. And we also do record videos on SQL Server performance tuning and SQL querying and programming. And we do upload all those free videos under youtube.com/SQLMaestros channel. And again, here is the direct link to join the Telegram group. So without any further delay, I'll hand it over to our today's speaker, Sudhir Rawat. Over to you, Sudhir.
Thank you so much. Good evening, good afternoon to all of you. I hope you're able to hear me. So let me just share my screen and okay, and share my screen. You can share. So today we're going to talk about Azure Data Factory, and one of the features that we're going to talk about in Azure Data Factory is mapping data flow. We're going to talk about what is mapping data flow and where you can use mapping data flow, and I'm probably going to give you a side-by-side comparison of by taking one of the use case. If you're going to write a code, how much time and how much line of code that you're going to write to achieve the data analysis of a scenario that I've taken for the demo. And then similar thing, how we can achieve with the mapping data flow. By doing that, it's probably going to give you a good understanding of how Azure Data Factory is making life easier for developer to focus on bringing innovations in their solutions rather than focusing on infrastructure side, the security side, or maybe getting into huge learning path, right? So with that, my name is Sudhir. I work with Microsoft, and I have my social handles mentioned. If you would like to connect with me and have any questions after the sessions, feel free to ping me, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay. Now, before I go ahead and get started and talk about mapping data flow, let me just give you a scenario and talk about it. If we're gonna write and if we're gonna achieve the data analysis by using some of the existing technologies, how we're gonna do that, right? And once we have the understanding of that, then probably we're gonna come back over here and to understand mapping data flow in more details, right? So what I have as a sample scenario is sample data. It's a CSV file, and as you can see, it has some information about the athlete, right? So you can see the IDs, the name of the athlete, their profile information, which team they play for, which games they participate in, which year, which city, what is the sport that they played, and whether they get any medal or not on that particular event, right? And if you look and analyze the data, you can see there are some values which are not available. For example, you can see over here, I don't have height and weight, right? And similarly, down you will find out, there are multiple rows where the data is not available, right? And I have one of the column called NOC, which basically define the region, as you can see. And I have another CSV where I have the definition of that particular region, and as well as some notes associated with it, right? Now, what I want to do at the end of the day is I want to actually do some kind of a analysis of how many medals in a particular year won by which country, right? But before we go and do that, right, it's very important for us as a data developer to understand, whether my data is clean or not, right? Because I believe that that if your data is not clean, that means your analysis is not going to be right, right? So the report your CTO, the CEO, the business users are going to look into, they may not get a right picture of their business, right? And hence, it's pretty important for us to do the data transformation, right? Now, let's say if I want to write this code in one of the very famous and familiar code environment, which is Azure Databricks, and I'm going to write a Python code over here, right? So what I have to do is I've already written the code. So the first thing is I basically gonna mount my blob storage, let's say where my data is stored, right? And then what I'm going to do is I basically going to create two data frames, right? So as you can see, I have an athlete data frame and then the region data frame, right? Once I get this data, what I'm going to do is I basically going to do some kind of a transformation where I want to figure it out. Hey, if the height is greater than 0 and age is greater than 0 and weight is greater than 0, that means that's a good data for me, right? And wherever I don't have that information, it's a bad data for me, right? So hence you will probably see that I have two data frames over here, which basically defines my good data and a bad data, right? Then I'm going to write my bad data in some storage so that I can give this information back to my users or maybe my vendors or my business analysis and say, hey, this is the data which does not contain full information that we require to do analysis, right? Then I'm going to do the sorting of the data, right? And then I'm basically going to do the joining of these two data sets, right? So I have my region data set, I have my athlete data set, and I'm doing the joining on this column, NOC, and then I'm doing a left outer join, right? Now what I'm going to do is, to make life easy, I basically have created a temporary view, right? And the reason is then I can actually go ahead and write a SQL-like queries, as you can see. I'm doing some aggregation, and I'm actually counting the number of rows and doing the group by year, region, and medal. And I'm saying whether medal is not equals to any. I mean, I'm not interested in on a record where the athlete doesn't win any medal, right? Similarly, I can do another kind of aggregation. So instead of doing now year, region, medal, I'm going to do on the region, sports, and medal, right? So that basically gives me the information, how many medals won by a particular region and which sports, right? So I'll get this information. And then I'm basically going to write this information back to my storage in the Databricks itself, right? Now, this is 26 lines of code, right? But think about this. If I have to write this data back to the storage, then again, probably I'm going to write a couple of line code more. And storing the credential information, right? Be you're writing your Databricks notebooks, or maybe in Azure notebooks, or maybe in any of the application. And especially if you're building an application on cloud, it's not recommended, right? So if you're building on your application for cloud, probably for the Azure, you should have store all your credentials, all your secret keys, all your certificates in the Azure Key Vault service, right? And then user applications talk to the Key Vault, get the token, and call the respective services to get authenticated and access the data, right? So you can assume over here another 10 or 15 lines of code, or maybe let's assume minimum you need 5 or 6 lines of code over here. So that means around 40 to 50 lines of code you're probably going to write to do this kind of analysis, which will probably dump in a storage, and then from the Power BI, my business user can connect to my storage and then have a look onto this information, right? Now, this is good, but the only thing is you need to understand how to write your Spark code, how Databricks works, right? How you're gonna write some of the Python functions, probably. You need to understand that, right? So the learning curve is there, right? And probably to design the logic, you will take some time to think about it, right? How the data is gonna come, and how you're gonna do, join the data set and then do the aggregation and so on and so forth, right? Now, what is the the idea of having this information when we are talking about the mapping data flow? Because mapping data flow allows you to do the data transformation without writing a single line of code, right? So as you can see on the slide, it's a new feature, right, which basically allows you to build a data transformation through the visual interface. You can transform the data at any scale in the cloud with zero code, right, as I already mentioned. So you don't have to learn any new technologies. And if you worked with SSIS earlier, though it's not a requirement, but if you work and if you know how the SSIS used to, the UI looks like, you will think that, this is pretty similar, right? Now, it's basically in a scale-out ELT environment where you can extract, load, and transform, and build your data flow pipeline just by dragging and dropping, or maybe just connecting one flow with the another flow, right? Serverless scale-out transformation execution engine. That means whenever you're going to run, because here we're not talking about bunch of rows, we're talking about millions or maybe terabytes of data that you have on your storage on which you want to do analysis, right? So you need a very heavy compute behind the scenes, right? So we have that engine behind the scenes, so you don't have to be worried about it. You can just go ahead and configure it and then run it. So that is available in terms of if you're gonna, and I'm gonna show you if you can just go ahead and scale your integration runtime and then provide how many clusters that you need and so on and so forth, right? Doesn't require you to understand Spark, Scala, Python, Java, which we already talk about it, and we're gonna see when we're gonna do a demo that how easy is it gonna be. Resilient for the data transformation flow. So one of the things which I like is in the mapping data flow is it allows you to provide a functionality of schema drift. So that means is today you have 6 columns that are coming in, but tomorrow if you have some more data, let's say 10 columns that are coming in, it automatically handles that for you. So you don't have to be, getting any kind of alerts in terms of the errors. It flawlessly handles that, right? Now, as I assume that you have a good understanding of mapping data flow, and I'm sure that when we're going to do the demo, you will get more understanding of, a better understanding of this particular feature, right? But okay, now we understand what is it, but where else I can use? I mean, what is the potential scenarios, right? So I'm going to talk about some of the common scenario that you can use to build your mapping data flow pipeline. So one of the scenarios that you can use is if you are working with the data warehouse world, and if you know the dimensional modeling techniques where you have to design your dimensions of the fact table, right? So one of the scenario is probably you're gonna update your dimensions table, right? Now, because your dimensions table not gets changed very frequently, that's why we call it slowly changing dimensions. And generally it has various types, type 1, type 2, type 3, right? But the whole idea is if you have that layered into your data warehouse, what you can do is you can actually go ahead and create mapping data flow pipelines to basically handle your changes that's going to happen on your dimensions, right? So on the screen, you will see two things. One is the flow, right? You will get your data, your dimensions data, your master data, then do the lookups with your product dimension tables and see what are the columns that are new, and then look into the surrogate keys, and then you're probably going to go ahead and maybe do some transformation and then update your data warehouse, right? Now, what you see over here is a very small window, which is basically we provides various templates. So instead of you building something from the scratch, what you can do is, let's say I'm working on this slowly changing dimension scenario. So instead of creating from the scratch, I can actually go ahead and go into the template gallery, click on that, and it automatically creates a mapping data flow for me, right? Obviously, I need to provide my source, my destinations, and maybe some kind of a configuration I need to do. But then once you're done with that, it basically gonna create the mapping data flow automatically for you, right? All right. This is probably you may be dealing on a daily basis if you're working on the data world, right? So data duplication. So what you can do is you can build the mapping data flow, and basically the pattern that we're showing you on the screen, you can actually go ahead and use it to eliminate the common rows from your data, right? And you can do various ways. You can tag the rows, or you can remove the duplicate rows. You can do the exact matching, or maybe you can use fuzzy matching, right? And it's also available as a pipeline template for you. Now, when we talk about data warehouse, right? So we have the dimensions tables. We also have the fact tables, right? Now we already talked about how you can handle your dimensions data when the changes happens. But at the same time, how you're going to load the data in your fact table. That's also possible by using mapping data flow. Just click what all activity that you want, and then it will just configure it, and it will be get done right in real quick time. Now you can do fuzzy lookup as well by using some of the functions that out of the box mapping data flow provides. For example, you can see when I'm doing a join conditions, I'm using the sound X functions, right, on both side of the data which is coming up, right? So title and title 2, right? So it's basically gonna find the matches based on the phonetic algorithms instead of doing a string to string comparison, right? Last but not the least, some kind of a data science scenario. it basically provides you options to look into the statistics of your data, right? So as you can see on the screen, as soon as you bring your data, it basically going to provide you the statistics options. And once you select any of the columns, it provides you various information over here, right? So we will see most of the features in the demo. But let me just check if I have any questions, or maybe I think I'm going to take questions at the why data flow is ELT when SSI is ETL. So here's the thing, right? I mean, there's two ways. Either you can extract, load, and do the transformation, and then you can actually go and have the extract, transform, and then load, right? So the only difference is when you extract, you load in some kind of a staging scenario, and then you transform the data, right? Whereas when you have into the ETL environment, you basically load the data, probably in the memory, transform it, and then the final data, you load it over there, right? And hence, this is the difference. And you will see when we're going to do the demo, is probably going to extract the data, load, and do some kind of a transformation on top of that, right? All right, so let me just go back onto my demo environment, and let's get started with the demo and see how it looked like. So I'll go back over here. And now I'm assuming, that's fine. So I'm assuming that you already know how to set up Azure Data Factory service on the Azure. If not, you can go to the create resource option in the portal and then say, I want to search for the Azure Data Factory and just click on the create. Once you've done that, you can actually go and come to the author and publish options, and which can take you over here, right? Okay. The another thing is either you can save all your artifacts in the data factory, or maybe you can connect with your GitHub repo. As you can see, I've connected to my GitHub repo so that every time I'm going to save my work, it basically going to save it into my GitHub repository, right? It's a pretty cool feature is there, and then I can have it tagged with the Azure DevOps as well. Now, let's come back to the mapping data flow. So if I click over here, I can actually go and create a pipeline from the templates, as I mentioned earlier, right? So if I'm going to say, hey, show me the transformation that I can do with the data flow, as you can see, deduplication pipeline, which we talk about, it's already there. You need to just select, and you need to configure your data, which is coming up, and then you can, you will get your pipeline created automatically for you, right? And then you can actually go ahead and add more to it, or maybe, maybe do some changes. All you can go ahead and do that, right? Now, I'm not interested in the templates. I just go ahead and close that, right? Now, before I go ahead and talk about the mapping data flow, the first thing is we need to have the connection, right? So I've already uploaded the data into the blob storage. And here's my source data, the same data which I show you, the CSV file, athlete CSV file. I've already uploaded. And in another container, I have my reference data. So here's my reference data. So I got all these two data. So now what I'm going to do is I'll go back to my mapping data flow. And as you can see in the connections, I've connected to my blob storage. And I have a multiple data sets over here, right? So one is connected to my athlete data source, one is connecting to my bad data container, one is connecting to my reference data containers, right? Now it's really depends you how you want to design the data sets, right? But what I'm going to do is now just close this, and you will see there's the option of a data flow. You can just click on that and say, I'm going to create a new data flow. And once you do that, it's basically going to show you designer on the right hand side. And now what we can do, we can start creating a pipeline. So the first step is I need to get the data. I'll click on that, and it's basically going to show me the walkthrough. I'm not going to go with that. I'm fine with it. And here I'm going to say this is my athlete data set, right? And which will be my source data set, which is my athlete data set, right? Now, as I mentioned earlier, you have the option for the allow schema drift if you think that, going forward, there might be some schema changes that you're expecting, you can go ahead and enable it. And then you can actually go ahead and enable your infer the different column data types, right? So if the columns are coming, if you want to just auto detect the different column types, you can actually go ahead and do that. You can validate the schema. You can get up, multi-line rows as well. You can skip the number of lines you want to do, right? If I go into the source option, I can actually go ahead and select the wildcard paths as well, right? And if I want to target a particular file, I can actually go ahead and do that. In my case, I think it's already connected to my file, the CSV file. And then if I'm connecting to my SQL, I'll show you. And this is, yeah. So if I'm connecting to SQL or maybe any source that basically supports a partition, I would highly recommend you to use that, so that the transformation is going to be more effective, rather than if you have the partition but you're not using it, it's probably going to cause a performance problems, right? In my case, I'm just going, because it's a demo, I'm just going to go with the current partition. I can go to the projection and I can say either define the default schema, or I can say detect the data type. Now, as you can see, this detect data type is disabled, and I'll tell you the reason of it. But if I want to reset it, I can go ahead and reset that. If I want to inspect the column, the data types, I can go ahead and do that. Now, most importantly, when I'm designing this mapping data flow, if I want to view the data, right, I need to actually enable the data flow debug over here. So let me just go ahead and do that. And as you can see, as I was mentioning earlier, it basically connecting to my predefined or the default integration runtime, right? But if you want to have an integration runtime with more heavy compute resources, you can create that and you can bind that as well. So for now, I'll just go ahead and click on OK, and it's basically getting my cluster ready to do that. So in the meantime, it's doing, I'm just going to add another data source over here, which basically now going to connect to my reference data, which is where my NOC data is stored. Now, once I have these two data sets coming in, right? Remember in the Spark file, what we did is basically filter out the data, right, based on the height, age, and weight. So similar thing I'm going to do over here. I'm just going to click on the plus button. And once I'm going to do that, as you can see over here, it basically provides me various options, right? What I want to do with this incoming data, right? So I'm going to say I'm going to do the conditional split for now. And once I do that, on the bottom, you can see that I can go ahead and give the bad data, right? Now let's go into the condition. Now, when you get into the expressions, right, you can see that all the columns are listed over here. Moreover, I have various inbuilt functions that I can use, right? So for example, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, because all my data is coming as a string, first I'm going to convert it into the integer. And I'm going to say the column name is age. If it is greater than 0, and to integer, I have weight. As you can see on the left hand side, these are the columns. So I can just go ahead and type in, and I can say to integer, I'm going to have my height 0. Right? Now, once I'm done with that, as you can see, there's no underline. That means my syntax is correct and I'm good to go. I'll just go ahead and click save and finish. But once you write a functions, if you want to see the results, you can go ahead and do that. Now, because we are waiting clusters to be get ready, it's still, you can see this message over here, right? But if you want to view the data, you can go ahead and do that, right? But in the Spark, you need to actually run the particular cell, to get the data and to see that what the data look like, right? So let me just go ahead and click save and finish, right? So now you can see I have two data sets over here. One is the bad data and one is a good data. And do I have, yep, the another source also I have. Now the bad data, I can actually go ahead and add to another, connect to my sink. So I'll click on the sink, but before that, let me just go ahead and create another data set over here, which basically gonna point to my blob storage. And I think I've already have the data set by the bad data name. So I'll just go ahead and connect with that. So I'll click over here and I'll go down and it says sink, which is my destination. And that's fine. And I'm gonna select my sink data set over here. Bad data. Yep. Okay. Now, once I'm done with that, the next step is I basically get this the good data. So before I'm going to do the join, I just want to do a sorting. So I'll just say, let me just go ahead and get the sort. Right. And then in that, I can say, hey, I want to connect. As you can see, the condition split one at the rate good data. That means it's connected to the good data. And the column that I'm going to do sorting on the NOC, and it's going to be on the ascending order, right? Similarly, sorry about that. Similarly, I'm going to do with the source. Before I'm going to do the join, I'm going to do the sorting of this data set as well. And just sort, and again, I'll say on the column NOC by ascending, and I'm good, right? Now I have two data sets. So what I'm going to do is next is I'm going to join this data set, right? So here I'll say, let's go ahead and join both the data sets, right? And as you can see over here in the configuration in the bottom, it basically says, okay, sort one on the left side, and on the right stream, I'm going to have my sort two, right? This one. And then I'm going to, okay, this is fine. And then I'm going to do a left outer join. And then I'm going to select my columns over here, which is C and C. And you will notice that data flow debug, the cluster is ready. I can actually go ahead and look into the data, right? So since we are here, let's see how the data is going to look like. I'm just going to refresh this. Now, once I have the data set join, then what we're going to do is we're basically going to use some aggregate function, right? So while it's coming up over here, I'll take the questions. I can see there's a one question, so I'll take the questions after the presentation. So now I'm going to do the aggregate on this joint data set. So I'll say, okay, let's go ahead and get me the aggregate option. Right. And I don't know whether you noticed or not, we actually got the data over here, right? So if I select any of these columns over here, ideally, it should basically enable the statistics for me. So let me just go back into my source data and click refresh over here to get all the data. But the whole idea, I think you get it. When you click, when your cluster is ready for the debug, you can actually go ahead and look into data, how the data is moving from one stage to another stage. And then if you want to do some kind of a statistics, you're probably going to get it over here, right? Now, let me just go back to my aggregate option. So here, now we're going to do the aggregation. Okay, that's fine. Now what I'm going to do is I basically going to give a, if you want to give a name, you can give it, but then you can actually go ahead and select the column on which you want to do the group by. For example, here I'm going to do the group by on here. And then I'm going to add one more column and I'm going to say, now do it on region. And then add one more and do it on medal wise, right? So that we'll know whether how many we get silver, gold, and bronze, right? Now, once I'm done with that, the group by, then we need to do the aggregation, right? So I'll say, okay, I'm going to do the aggregation on, I will do the ID, and here I'll say count ID. Okay, right? So once I'm done with that, I can actually go ahead and now come over here and sorry, my mouse is behaving a little weird. Apologize for that. Yep. I can say new branch. So because let's say if you want to do the another kind of aggregation, you can create kind of a the same data that you're gonna get it, right? So that's your new branch of the same data. And then here you can actually go ahead and perform a different type of aggregation. So for example, let me say aggregation over here. And I'll go into the aggregate 2. And again, I'm here. I'm going to select my region, right? And then I'm going to say, select my sports column. And I'm going to add one more column, which is my medal column. And then on the aggregation again, I'll just select, I'll say, all right. Now let's go back over here while we are doing it. Let's just preview the data. And let me just click on this small icon over here, and then it'll basically fits within the screen space that we have it. Right? And then you can zoom in, zoom out pretty easily. All right, so now you can see over here, I basically get the data, right? And I can see somewhere we get there's no medal. So what I can do is before I write the data, I can actually go ahead and use a filter options over here. So let's say you say filter, and then you can say wherever the medal doesn't equals to NA, those are the records that you want to add, right? But for now, that's okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're probably gonna, let me just zoom in a little bit, and let's go ahead and say I'm gonna add sync, right? Now I don't have any sync, so what I can do is I'll probably gonna create one data set over here, which basically gonna point a location on my blob storage. So it's going to be CSV, let's say, and then inside one, link service, blob storage. Okay, and click. Let's see if I have, okay, I have a container. So I'll just connect to this container and say, okay. And similarly, I'll create another data set for the inside 2, because we are doing 2 types of aggregation, right? So we want to dump that data into the plot storage. So I'll just select that. And while I'm doing this, you're probably gonna get some sense that how easy it is to work with Data Factory, and especially with this particular feature. And if you want to do some kind of a data manipulation with an ease, you can go ahead and do it, without, I would say, the day first itself, without reading anything, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I have inside 2 as well, and then go back to my data flow. And let's see, in the sync 1, I'm going to say store it inside 1. And the aggregation 2 that I'm doing, I can actually go ahead and connect to another sync. And I would say this is going to be my inside 2. And just go ahead and save it. And if you want to validate, you can actually go ahead and do the validations as well, right? Now, once I have it over here, my mapping data flow created, I can go back to my data pipeline, right? And I can say, I want to create my data flow. And this is basically execute mapping data flow pipeline, right? And I can actually go ahead and validate, or I can just go ahead and run it from here itself. So let's save all, and let me just go ahead and click on debug it. Okay, that's fine. Let's trigger it now. Finish. Right. So started running my pipeline, and the another thing that I want to show you is when it goes to the monitoring tab, how well and what kind of metrics that it gives you, which basically makes your life easy to look into how much time it takes on each transformation, right? Let's go back over here and see. Okay, that runs pretty fast. Okay, sorry about that. You know what happened? This is that's what I was wondering. This pipeline I was having previously, and what I need to do is yeah, that's fine. Validated. Yep, everything is correct. Let me just go and have a look. Yep, and over here, there you go. Right, so now you can see when it's going to start reading the data and do some transformation, you will get all this information over here. So probably we're going to wait for maybe 30 seconds or maybe in a minute to reflect over here. In the meantime, it's happening. Let me just close that. And one of the options you see over here is saving a template. I don't remember when we started the presentation. I said that you can actually get and create a pipeline from the template, right? Now, when you build a pipeline and you feel that it's very good to share with other teams, right? In the same environment, you can just say, okay, I want to create as a template, and you can say this is my first template. And if you want to provide the location where you want to store, if you want to add the tags, maybe by department, maybe by the projects, and any documentation link you can provide. So I can say http www.microsoft.com, and I'm going to save this template. Okay. Now, once my template gets saved, right, in the environment, I'll actually go ahead and say then go ahead and create a new pipeline from the template. And then I can say my templates, and you can see here's my template, right? If I click on that, again, I have to configure all the connection string in the data set, right? And then it'll get imported. So let's cancel this, go back to the monitor. And see the execution over here. No, this is showing me the copy data of the previous one. That was the. Let's go back over here, and we did a debug. Go back to the pipeline, and here's my metrics. So if I click on that, and there you go, right? So this is what I want to show you, that how many rows that it reads, and then how much time it takes for the processing, right? So all this information is available for you. So it's pretty easy for you to debug, to figure it out where exactly it's taking a long time, and probably you want to do some kind of changes in your flow, right? Which is, if you want to do onto the Spark, it's probably going to take some good amount of time for you, or maybe to figure it out where is the data, or maybe you're going to write the data somewhere, right? So you're probably going to do manually and going to spend some time. But with this mapping data flow, it's pretty easy for you, right? Now, having said that, I'm not saying that just go ahead and convert all your Spark code into the mapping data flow. What we're looking for is available in the mapping data flow, right? So for example, in this Spark, you can actually go ahead and add your Maven, the package from the Maven repository. You're probably not going to get it over here, right? So, but most of the things, the basic transformations or the general transformation that we do in a day in, day out is probably gonna easy with the mapping data flow, and you can easily use that, right? And then obviously, because you can execute in the pipeline, you can connect with any other activities in the pipeline as well, right? Now, if you want to connect with the batch service, I can go ahead and do that. Okay. So I think this is all I have for the today's presentation. Let me just go back and probably hand it over to the moderator before we look into the Q&A. So let me just say stop share. And over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sudhir. That's the webinar. Before we take Q&A, I just have a couple of slides. And while I'm reading out my slides, all of you please put up your questions using Q&A panel. So after my slides are done, Sudhir will answer all your questions. So beyond this webinar, if you still have any questions, you can use our social channels again, our Facebook group, LinkedIn group, and Telegram group. You can post your questions there, and we'll get that questions to Sudhir, or someone from the community will answer the questions. And as I told you, SQLMaestros is coming up with video courses on SQL Server performance tuning and T-SQL querying and programming. And all these video courses are based out of master classes, which are master series. And there will be more than 100 hours of content, which are advanced and deep dive. And in performance tuning course, there are more than 25 plus advanced level modules are there. And in T-SQL querying and programming, there are more than 15 plus advanced modules are there. The best advantage of subscribing to a video course is that you can watch anytime, anywhere, and as many times as you can. If you wish to learn more about what are the contents that are going to cover and what is the pricing model, you can visit SQLMaestros.com, or else you can simply drop an email to contact@SQLMaestros.com. And SQLMaestros also have a self-paced learning solution called Hands-on Labs, wherein you will be provided with a lab document. If you follow through the document, there are scripts supporting explanations, observations, and screenshots provided. At the end of the document, you will be able to become an expert in that particular topic. And there are already more than 100 plus labs available on SQL Server, Azure, Power BI, Analytics, Cosmos DB, etc. And there are close to 2,000 subscribers which are already working on hands-on labs. So if you wish to learn more about hands-on labs, and there are a couple of free labs are also available, you can download and try them. And all of them are available at SQLMaestros.com. So stay tuned to Data Platform Geeks. There are a few more webinars available in upcoming days. There is one more tomorrow and one next week, and we have few more in January and February also. So we have already put up a thank you note in our LinkedIn group and Facebook group. The link is there available in chat window. You can put up your comments and feedback about today's webinar there in our LinkedIn post. That will encourage our speakers to come back and deliver sessions for you for free. So please don't forget that. And all the events, upcoming events, you can register at dataplatformgeeks.com/events. Here is the list of events, and you can find few more there at dataplatformgeeks.com. And don't forget to post your feedback. The link is again available in chat window. So with this, we'll conclude, and I'll hand it over to Sudhir to take Q&A.
Sure, thank you. And before I take this Q&A, I think I forget to show you the output. And I think maybe you guys are wondering. Okay, yeah, so let me just share my screen again. You might be wondering whether the data is...
There is again that sound issue, Sudhir, like in the beginning.
Okay, better now?
Still that noise is there.
Let me check on that. Can you guys hear me properly?
No.
Okay. I'll just say slow because it's very very less information I want to share before I answer the questions. You see all the data which is come as an output from the mapping data flow stored on my blog storage on the inside one, right? Remember we created this connection and all I have my data over here, right? Now you will see this is files in a multiple files. However, if you want to have this data to be available in one particular file, then we can actually on the sync, I can come into the settings, I can say output this data in a single file. Instead of creating a multiple file, then the Azure Data Factory is going to create a single file and dump all the data inside it. Okay. Now let's just go ahead and go back and take questions. Okay. So why sort is used before join? Any specific reason? There's no specific reason. What I was trying to do is, just to show the capability, and if you really want to see the reason behind it, it would be whenever I'm getting data to join, right? I want to sort it out.
The voice is actually echoing multiple times. So we can use type answer option so that we can type the answer. So whoever asked the question can answer in that.
I'm going to type your answers over here. Capture and data flow and save in an output file. So I don't understand what you want to capture. Okay, output or catalog files. We can capture and data flow and save in an output file. So let's say type the answer.
So the question was, how can we capture error in data flow and saved into an output file? The answer from Sudhir is ADF does store this information for you. You don't have to worry about it. And for the previous question, why sort is used to join, any specific reason? And the answer from Sudhir is no specific reason.
The pipeline. Okay.
Another question from Uma. I have few questions. Is ADF help to deal the real-time data streaming as well? Real-time is answer from Sudhir is not yet. And the other question, is there any limitation with the volume or source target storage? Can we load the data to Hadoop? Answer for that is, I believe connector is there to store it in HBI. That's the answer from Sudhir. The next question is from Srinivas. Pipelines are part of Azure DevOps. The pipelines are used in ADF are one and the same, or they differ from exact other? The answer from Sudhir is there are three types of pipelines in Azure. One for ADF, second one Azure pipeline, third one DevOps, and all are different. The next question is it possible to get incremental data from SQL without using CT or CDC with help of ADF data flow mapping? Answer from Sudhir is yes, do based on watermarking column. And there is another question from Kaushik Jagalapuri. How can we set email notification if there is any error in data flow? The answer from Sudhir is you can do that based on activity success or fail, need to do some work. Next question, enabling allow schema drift in the source settings of the data flow is to handle the schema evolution. The answer from Sudhir is not sure about schema evolution. Can we connect offline? And I'll share the email ID in chat window. Sudhir, aw@microsoft.com. So I'm giving you all of you the email ID to connect with Sudhir in chat window. The email ID is available in chat window. So if you want to connect with Sudhir offline, you can use that email ID. And Sudhir is also active in social media as well. And another question from Srinivas, is there any template specific to CDC in ADF data pipelines? Answer from Sudhir is not yet. Question from
All right. I think for any of the questions, you guys can drop an email and I'll get back on that.
Sure. So beyond this webinar, if you still have any questions, so you can easily write your questions in our social channels, or else you can directly write to Sudhir also. The email ID is provided there, and we'll request you to provide your feedback on our LinkedIn channel. It will encourage our speakers to come back and deliver sessions for you. So thank you, Sudhir. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for attending this webinar.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. And good night from my side, and have a good evening at your end. Bye-bye.
Good night. Good night, Sudhir. Yeah.